Welcome to the Healing Hour. I am your host, Athena Rodriguez, and we'll be having some healing conversations. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Healing Hour podcast. Today we have our amazing guest, Kevin.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hello, and so tell us a little bit about yourself. I always like my guests to introduce themselves. I want to get the essence of who you think you are.
Who do I think I am? Oh,
Yes.
Gosh, I mean, I can go super deep into that. But my name is Kevin. I'm 32. I'm an actor. I'm also been working with a community here in Houston, Texas, working with a whole bunch of other artists. So that's pretty much. So I would say I'm an artist.
Yes.
That's the best way I can describe myself.
Yeah, so Kevin is actually a jack of many trades. He's selling himself a little short here with the artist thing.
That's true. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of things.
He's very knowledgeable about a lot of things, and one of those things being astrology, which is what our episode today is about. And so for this episode, I kind of just wanted to, just have a little conversation about astrology, because there's so much that I feel like, we see it all the time on social media. Oh, like the Scorpio memes and the Sagittarius memes.
Yeah.
But I want to really dive deeper into that and see where we fit in.
Well, something which I've also noticed here in America, that they haven't really gone too deep into astrology. So, I've been around people who have gone much deeper into it. So that's why I got very, very interested in it. It's pretty much been an ancient practice that's been going on for quite some time. I think it's been around for quite some time. So there's like text and history about it. Like we were even talking in the car, but there's been astrologers who have worked with even Christians, Catholics in the past. So it's quite fascinating when you start reading more about it. But for me, astrology is more about healing. I've always been about healing because I feel like there's a lot of people that do need healing at the moment. But that's what astrology is to me. It's been a very big part of my life. I delved much deeper into it back in 2020 when I was in Alaska, and I was just alone with a lot of philosophical books, understanding human psychology. So that's why I got very into it. And along the way, now I've been doing, obviously every now and then I'll do a person's reading and we kind of go deep into it. And for the most part, everybody's been pretty happy with what I've been giving them. So even this very staunch Catholic who I had a conversation with, and he said, 85% you got it right. I was like, okay, cool. All right, sweet. So, but that's just simply because I went deeper into the practice. So trying to understand the symbolisms of what it means. So,
So Kevin is a really interesting person to where he's lived in a lot of very exotic places, a lot of very, out of their places. So I know you just said that Americans, we don't dive as deep into astrology. So where do you think, what's one of the places that you've lived where you were really able to get a better understanding from the people around you and the way that they do astrology?
Brazilians are getting deeper into it, and I learned a lot from them. They have a very maybe it's because they live in nature all the time. I think they seem to have for example, I remember seeing interviews with Gisele Bündchen. But I think it's because Brazil has quite an open nature towards astrology, and because they're always consistently surrounded by nature. I think coming to Texas, I don't see many people engaging with nature that much, because I think there is something about nature that kind of helps a person open their mind.
True.
So I think it could be something to do with that, but I think because I lived a part of my life because I lived in Brazil as well, so I think it allowed me to open my mind up to certain things when it comes to engaging with other people, and that's why I dive deep into it.
So why do you think that a lot of people are not open to diving into astrology?
They think it's witchcraft.
No, I was gonna say that.
Yeah, they'll either think it's witchcraft, or that we're trying to put a hex on someone.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think astrology is more of just kind of trying to understand who you are as a human being. But obviously, there have been people who have utilized it in a way that it shouldn't be. But isn't that in almost every religion and practice?
Anything.
So I think I would want to say I'm a good astrologer. I would hope so. I'm definitely a student of it, and I'm trying to understand it so I can help people. But I think the reason why they haven't gone too deep into it is because it's kind of scary. Yeah, no, it is. It is scary, and I think it's hard to step into something that appears to the rest of the world so taboo. You see, but then when you look at the people who have utilized astrology, you're like, okay, maybe I should try and step into it a little bit, or maybe understand it and see why it should be something that should be taken, not so lightly, but at the same time be responsible with it. Yeah.
Like, I can definitely see the other side of it too. It's like thinking that you can pull up a chart and see, kind of like a screenshot of your life and kind of a chapter book of your life.
Yeah,
it can come off a little intimidating to a lot of people.
I wouldn't say so. Yeah, it could be like a chapter of your life, but I kind of see it as these are the energies that you were born with. And I know it sounds weird. It sounds absolutely berserk, but that's kind of like how I interpreted it. It's like there were certain things that were here when you were born, so you can tap into it,
right?
Because there's other things about astrology that people don't understand as well, like aspects. So aspects are kind of like how the planetary alignment, and it's not the actual planet, it's a representation of the planets. It's kind of like a symbolism of what that is. So you were born into this world with certain aspects, and that's why certain things are happening to you. But what you do with your life is still your own, but it's happening in a way and where certain things were aligned. You see,
I think a lot of people get tripped up with that. Yeah, is like they mistake astrology for your own free will. Like we have free will.
We do have free will. Like for example, I'm born at a certain time. Somebody could have been born at the same time as me, but that doesn't mean we're going to have the same life. There are probably going to be certain things which are similar, but not. But we still have free will of whatever life that we want. Like for example, I was born with a lot of ninth house, which is connected to Sagittarius, which is connected with God, wisdom, philosophy. But my philosophy might be going into my art, and somebody else's philosophy might be going into law, or business or something. So one way or another, we do have control over which direction our life goes into.
Okay. Yeah. So, I guess another thing I've always wondered too is, like you said, we were born with these energies, and how do you view people who kind of stray from the energies that they say they have a lot of like you were saying, like you have a lot of like Sagittarius energy to you. Say if you decide to defy that and have a lot of, I don't know, what's the opposite of a Sag?
The opposite of it is Gemini.
Gemini.
So, like for example, if you're a Sag, you're more about expansion, you're about philosophy. If you're more Gemini, you're more into the world of commerce, business, logical thinking. Okay. So they may not always see the Sagittarius part as something that they need in their lives, because we live in a much more logical world. So, like for example, Geminis would thrive in the logical world, because it's like, well, it's business. I need to see it. It's logical. Yeah. Sagittarius is more like, I'm now expanding from the current logic and trying to see what else is out there. You see? Yeah. So those are the two opposites.
That makes sense. Yeah. So when you stray from your natural energy and you go towards, I guess, say who you want to be in this lifetime, like do you find that there's often like conflicts with that?
No, not for me. I tell people, like I said, we have our own free will. I think if that's what you choose and that's what you choose, that's your power. Yeah. We're here to live the lives that we want to live. So that's what I would want for people. Like if people strayed away from astrology, I'm not gonna be mad about it. Right. Because that might just be their path. But I could still probably see, this person is straying from astrology. Or would probably, because of that's the energy that they were born with. They might have been born with scorpionic energy. Scorpionic energy tends to detach from one life to another. You see, it's like shedding a skin, and they're going into something else because they have to transform into whatever world that they want to go into now.
So let's run it back a little bit, right? Yeah. Because a lot of people don't have a basic understanding of astrology. Okay, so let's dive into, let's just cover the big three, like, sun, moon, and rising, which is what typically people usually talk about, or like the big energies in your life. So how do you break those down?
So the sun is basically the core of your ego. It's basically who you are. So for example, you're a Sagittarius sun.
Yes.
So the chances are you're probably a person who really wants to kind of expand your mindset on certain things.
Yeah.
You probably do live in the logical world, but like you want to expand your mind. But I also saw that your house placement was in the fourth house. So you're about home, emotions, you really like your personal comfort.
I love being home. I love being home.
Yeah. So yeah, and it is a lot of the time it's hermit energy as well. Like for example, I have a friend, his house, he's in the fourth house. And I've noticed that he does better when it comes to business type of things when he's at home. So the other day, we had a business meeting in his home, and I could see how he moved very, very quickly. So he had to feel quite familiar with other people. So then you'll have your moon. And your sun is also connecting to your father. So the representation of your father. So what your father was like to you. So probably depending on what the aspects were, you probably had a very either emotional connection with your father or lack of, depending on what the aspect says.
Yeah.
But maybe that was something that you yearned from him, like you hoped that he was emotional with you. So I would have to look into your aspects to see what that relationship could have been like. Then you have your moon, which is connected to the mother. So why you probably respond to things in a certain way. So I have a moon in Virgo, so my mother's quite critical, most likely, and I quite critical as well. So that's something I obtained from her. And in my aspects, it shows that my sun is opposite to my moon. So my parents, they're together, but they're actually quite different people. So I have that by watching them growing up. I have this back and forth, like, well, my father might be right about some things, when it comes to expanding his mind to go somewhere, but then my mom will feel like quite reserved, and she's like, well, I don't know if I want to go, so it's like that's kind of what I was born with. So I go back and forth, like, let me check in with my emotions, and then I go off and do this crazy thing, and then that becomes my new reality. So the chances are when I get into a relationship, I'm always going to have this back and forth, with my emotions and my ego.
I feel that I'm also a Virgo moon.
Okay.
So that's something we have in common. So you saying that really resonated. I feel like it's a constant trying to go from a
You're trying to be a perfectionist.
Yes. What is the best option for me here?
So when they talk about Virgos in moon, they say be kind to yourself because there is this deep amount of criticism that we will put on ourselves. Right. So my sister has it too, and she's a phenomenal woman, but she's still critical of herself. Yeah. The same thing with me. I'm very critical of myself, even though people will be like, "Why?" And I'm like, "But I just am." I always look for perfection when it comes to certain things.
Okay, so speaking of perfection, one thing I've noticed about Virgos, and I came to this realization the other day on the phone with one of my friends. I'm like, wow, a lot of the greats are Virgos, like Beyonce and Michael Jackson and Kobe Bryant. Yes. Like all these people dedicate their entire
yes. So Virgo is the feminine, it's the earth feminine. So you can associate it with multiple things. Many Christians actually have a lot of Virgo energy inside of them because there is a desire to serve. Oh wow. So that's what the Virgo energy means. It means service. So when you become of service and you find a routine for your service, you tend to become very, very good at what you're doing. So because when you see people like Michael Jackson and Beyonce and they talk about Virgo energy, look at their work ethic. Yeah. You see, their work ethic tends to match no other. And same thing happens with Kim Kardashian. When you look at her chart, there are certain Virgo placements that shows that she's a hard worker. So Virgo is also very, very good for making a lot of money if you know how to structure yourself. So it's about structure, you see.
Yeah. I feel that. I cannot fathom without a routine. I cannot... I'm just not myself. I get really depressed when I stray away from my routine. If it's shaken up for any reason, I feel like I don't know how to operate in those circumstances.
No, that's Virgo energy, because Virgo energy is also about is a healing in a different sense. It's about making sure that you're being taken care of. You see. So that's why, when people talk about the feminine and masculine energy, we all have it. So many men can have Virgo energy, which is feminine, because the desire to, structure their homes and, all that. So, that's Yeah, I find Virgo is very powerful placement. My father's a Virgo, so and he's very like
To the book.
everything to the book, bills and receipts, and
Receipts.
I'm very opposite, and I'm like, well, we'll just figure it out. Like,
Aquarius energy.
very, I'm very like, it's all gonna work out, and it does always
Right, it
out, but
does.
it's like it's gonna work out in the end. Like, we'll be fine. Yeah,
Honestly. And then
yeah.
the ascendant, I seen something the other day too where it was like a lot of people think the ascendant is a mask that you're putting on when in reality
It's just the projection that people see us in. So, for example, like, Kanye West is a Cancer rising,
oh wow.
so he's kind of, a little bit rounder, but then when you get to know him, he's quite like chaotically genius and
Yeah.
artistically genius. So if he was walking on the strip, many people probably wouldn't have noticed that until they actually talked to him. So it's just the projection that we have onto the world. That's it. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know he was a Cancer rising.
Yeah.
I feel like he's such a Gemini through and through.
No, so yeah, that's his personality. So his ego,
Yeah.
who he is a Gemini, but who he appears to everybody else is like a Cancer. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And emotional outbursts.
Yes, very, very emotional. Very
'Cause
emotional.
that's another thing. I don't know a lot of Geminis that are super emotionally charged. Usually they're able to analyze those.
It depends on their house placement as well. So, for example, you could be a Gemini sun, but with a 12th house. So that's 12th house is a very emotional house. Yeah. So yeah, it depends. Yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah, because everybody's because sometimes I'll hear like Geminis are not emotional. I'm like, well, yeah. In the end of the day, it just depends on also your house placement. Your house placement plays a big part as well. Yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
then so we went over the sun, we went over the moon, and we went over the rising. So what is an important aspect that usually doesn't get talked about as much?
North node and south node. I've noticed that doesn't get talked a lot.
And what are those?
So the north node and the south node is basically it tries to determine it's a determination of your spiritual path. So for example, I'm going to give an example of I remember seeing someone who I saw, Meghan Markle.
Yeah.
Right? Meghan Markle, her south node is in Aquarius, but her north node is in Leo. So Meghan Markle probably spent a lot of time being of service to people, to her collective, but now she's here to grow beyond that and kind of be a Leo-esque character. And that's something that's quite hard for her. So, when she had like negative press in the media, stepping into kind of like a Leo-esque expressing herself, it didn't go down well, but she kind of had to power through it, and now she's in a better position because she had to go through it, because the royal family was like a collective, so she was probably in the wrong collective, and that's why she kind of felt that way. She was like, things just keep closing on me, and it sucks, so now let me leave, and then she had to be a Leo and be like, I gotta go, she's like, I'm not supposed to be here, and now she's thriving more in America, so that's what I'm saying. It's like she gets to be her authentic self, and she wasn't. So sometimes when you are constantly in a collective, you're not actually expressing who you are individualistically, Yeah.
That's another thing. When you bring up Meghan Markle, it's weird because I didn't really, until the conflict with the whole royal family started, she was never really a vocal person.
No, she wasn't. No, she wasn't, and that's what she's here to be like.
Yeah, I think it kind of like pushed her.
Yeah, I think, and she has the similar placement to Beyonce as well. Beyonce, I think, is North Node in Leo, so she doesn't really do many interviews anymore, and but all of her expression comes through her art.
Right.
You see, it's always so new and different because she's been around so many different communities, so she's been able to learn from those different collectives and then become like Queen Bey. Leo energy is king energy, so it's quite fascinating to watch.
So is this like, okay, so now I'm curious about this placement because we talked about it in the car.
Yeah.
And now I realized, guys, today I learned that what was it, the North Node?
So there's a North Node in South. So you're in the North Node in Leo as well.
Yes.
So you come from a placement of the 6th house. So you're very structured. You're very, clean. Like even the way that you present yourself is quite Virgo. So the 6th house is connected to Virgo as well. Yeah. So you're very orderly and stuff within the collective, and you've probably been able to gain opportunity quite easily in your life. But now eventually it gets to the point to where you have to balance just being about everybody else and be about yourself as well.
That's something I really struggle with. It's crazy how you're bringing this up, because it's something that I've actually had to sit with myself. Is, I feel like I'm in this season now. Ever since I turned 25, I just kind of felt a real urge to only do things that make me happy, and only do things that
connect to the inner child.
Yes, and not consider other people, because that's something that I struggled with a lot. Is like considering everyone's feelings and then like none of my own feelings, and I feel like that's something that I'm kind of learning to do as life goes on. So you talking about like these women who are pushed to, express themselves. And that's another thing I don't do. Like, this podcast took 4 years to gain enough confidence to do, because I don't like speaking to the collective. And I love gaining knowledge and I love sharing knowledge, but I just don't like to interact.
Yeah. No, I get that. And I think that also, when I looked at your chart, you had fourth house placements. So, you're quite like reserved and hermetical. Like, you're a hermit. Like I'm a hermit as well. So it's just having to come out into the world and now talk about all these things. You're like, this is weird, and I'm probably going to be, probably going to be seen as a weird person. I'm like, oh god, here we go again. Like,
I like to gatekeep my personality. Like, now everybody knows.
Yeah, I'd rather just be like, but I think ever since I got back from the UK, everybody's like, you need to probably go out there more often. And I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. Like, but yeah, no, that's probably why you've probably been of service to other people for quite some time, and now it's time to shine. And I said, go have fun, find something fun to do, something that you personally enjoy instead of just what other people enjoy. What do you like? And you probably will probably make even money from it. You never know. Yeah, I'm all about people getting their money, so I'm
right, business minded,
100%.
So I'm so fascinated about the different places that you were able to live and explore. And so do you think that the different places you've moved has impacted
100%. 100%.
Do you think it's impacted how you I guess how you move about, like how you develop yourself?
Well, I don't know, girl. Like, I'm
that's a loaded question.
No. But I just, I've been quite lucky. I've been very open to different things. I try not to limit myself at all. But I'm one of those people, like, I'll walk into the door and let's see what happens. Like, I'm totally fine with my life changing drastically when I go into one place to another, because I learned so much about myself, of who I am in those moments. So I'm always trying to push myself to do odd things, because you never know what you can find, and it enhances your creativity, you see.
Right.
Yeah.
And I also read up on I think there's like geography lines in
oh yeah, a friend of mine was talking about. I don't know much about that, but a friend of mine was talking to me about that. Yeah.
And so I know some places on the axis is like where you can really shine.
Yeah.
What do you think about
that? I mean, that's very interesting. I don't know much about that. There's still so much I'm learning, so I'm still a student, but it's definitely something I want to look into. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, where do you think so far where you live? Where do you think you've been able to really like shine?
I've definitely been able to shine in the US. Brazil was a great place. I lived in New York. New York was a very different experience, though. Like, I was definitely trying to do something. I had to learn something from there, but I also lost things from there too. So I don't know.
It's a balance.
I think definitely my path is definitely leading me more towards like Europe, different parts of the States. I've noticed that's where a lot of my opportunities have been coming from. So I don't know, maybe I'll try to research about it, see what else I can discover about it, but I've not delved too deep into it yet.
Right.
Yeah. A friend of mine told me about it, so I was like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, you never know.
Right.
Have you found something from those geographical lines, or?
So, like, I like to travel a lot, and I definitely feel like in different areas I'm able to I do realize I get noticed in different areas. Like, one of those places, I definitely think in Spain. Like, when I was in Spain, like, they were on me.
Okay.
They were on me.
Yeah.
Like, to where, like, I remember getting a tour, one of the cathedrals, and one of the tour guides was like stop the tour. You look like Nefertiti.
Oh wow!
And I'm just looking like okay, they don't do this in the U.S.
Well,
like,
well then I think you need to move to Spain or somewhere.
right?
Yeah, you
I'm
might
like,
move to Italy for a bit.
you get goddess energy out of me.
Well, I mean that's what happened with one of my cousins. Like she was just like, Kevin, I was in Italy and I'm being seen as a goddess. I'm like, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's like, in Houston, like maybe not so much. Like in Houston, okay, like I've been able to get a lot of opportunities, and I definitely think I blend in aesthetically here. But when I do travel to I will say Miami's another one of those places where like I'm able to really attract a lot of
Well, something that I've noticed about living in Houston is that we have to remember that they've been affected by a very different culture. And so even in Europe, in different areas in Europe, they've also been affected by different cultures and how their history has shaped who they've become, their religion, their art. Something I've noticed here in America is that there isn't a huge exposure to old art compared to that being in Europe. So that could be a factor. So that maybe that's the reason. I think sometimes Americans in certain areas take almost too much of a logical approach to certain things.
Yeah.
And maybe that's probably why for you you're moving into a much more of a expressionistic artistic connection.
Right.
It's not just grounded in reality. It's like, no, see me more as something else. Like, why can't you see me more as something else? Like, I put a business together, I put this together, and you see it like, well, we had to get the job done. But some other people will be like, no, you're a goddess. Like, how did you get all that done?
Like,
you must have some sort of energy inside of you that's,
right.
doing that. And that's how some people will see that. So maybe it's time to travel. Maybe it's time to meet people. Maybe you might find your man in a different area. No.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, so for so
look at you're blushing so much. No, but seriously, it could.
I really don't think my husband is in Houston, Texas. I just don't see it for me.
No,
I don't even think he's in the U.S.
And that's perfectly fine. I mean, you might find him somewhere else.
Right.
Maybe that's what you're here to do. Find him in a different area.
Yeah, that would be very sad of me.
Well, that's a Sagittarius thing to do.
Very okay. Let me go travel and be a romantic or something.
When I looked at your chart, you said it shows that you moved into the 12th. You move into the 12th house. So the 12th house is also a travel house, but it's about something different. So I don't know. Maybe he is someone completely utterly different. So I would go check that out.
Okay. I like a little bit of everything. So.
No, go for it. You might as well. A nice spicy paella or something.
Okay. In Mexico, I get a lot of attention too. And whenever I travel to Mexico, I'm like, oh, they love me over there.
Well, because
maybe my husband's a little poppy.
Well, a lot of Mexicans are quite expressionistic about how they they communicate with people, and their art. They're also affected by what they see in art every day. So you're probably looking for someone who's a little bit more artistic or expressionistic, most likely.
And romantic. Like I feel like in Spain, that was something that I don't get in the States. Like the men in Spain were so romancy.
Yeah, they're more moving with their bodies, and
if they're trying to holler at you, they're telling you like you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life, and it's like. Even though he's probably saying that's like 10 other foreign girls, but
no, go for it.
In the U.S. it's kind of like they're not very romantic expressionists, and I'm a passion junkie. This is who I am.
Go get yourself some passion, darling. You gotta do it. You gotta go for it.
Italy's on my list.
Oh, I love Italy.
Italy's on my list.
Love Italy.
See, I love France, but the thing about Frenchmen, where they were a little too pushy. I don't like the pushiness.
Where did you go in France?
So in Paris, and then I have family in Juvisy.
Okay, yeah, you need to go south.
Oh, south of France.
Yeah, go to the south. You might have a very different experience.
Okay, that's next.
yeah.
Me and my friends talked about going to south of France.
Yeah, go to the south. Yeah, I think you might find the type of person you're looking for.
Okay, I need him to be like suave and have game, but also not be like. I feel like the guys in Paris were like in my face, like no person was like talking to me like this, like get away from me.
No, go for it. I advise, go to the south next time you go to France. Yeah.
So how do you? And that leads me to my next question. So how do you eliminate that fear of moving into new territory? Because something about me is where I know I need to let go of is like being too cookie cutter and logical. And it's like, I know that I don't want to just live in the States all my life, but how do you motivate somebody to just like do it, to just make that move?
You are not who you think you are in the area you live in. So go see who you might be in a different environment.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I think that's the best way I can describe it.
Oh.
Who you are in the environment you are today may not be who you are in a different place. So go explore it.
I definitely feel that. Yeah. Like even just, moving from Boston to Houston, I definitely feel that. Like I feel like I was able to reinvent myself without having to feel like I'm tied to being whatever version of myself I was when I lived, where I lived. Even in Texas, like I moved from one city over to Houston. It's like every time I move, I'm able to reinvent myself. Yeah. And like go further. But it's just something about living overseas, even though my family's not even from America. Yeah. Like something about living somewhere other than America feels so uncomfortable to me.
Well, I mean, where haven't you been? Where is the place that you would desire to go to?
Like to live?
Yeah.
Okay, I will say when I visited Spain, I was trying to figure out a way to get over there.
Yeah.
I was like, I need to figure out a way to live here.
Well then I would say research. How I mean, if that's what you wanted to do, research, the laws and how to get a place or whatever, figure it out, and you never know. I say go for it. Go for the unknown because you never know what you're going to discover. Now, I hope nobody gets murdered on their trips. So that would be because then I'm going to be told, well, this man told him to go on the unknown. But I mean, obviously, make sure you got certain things in place. I would say go explore. Go explore the unknown. Go explore. Yeah.
So what do you? Okay. So what? And I don't know if you're able to answer this question because I don't even know if you can tell this by astrology.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so for my lovers out there, what placements or houses I guess, okay, what am I trying to say? Okay, are you able to tell the era of your life that you'll meet your forever spouse through astrology? Or is that kind
that's a very weary yes and maybe no. It really depends.
Yeah.
There are certain placements that show you what you could be looking for in a lover or in a spouse. I would have to look deeper into it because the thing is, I've met people who have met their spouses or lovers in different points in their chart. So it depends on what you want in the relationship. That's something that I've noticed. Sense. Because sometimes I'll be like, well, it could be the seventh. When I'm looking at a person's chart, they could be meeting their spouse when they move into the seventh house. But then the seventh house also means business partners. You see? So your spouse could be somebody who you're connected with in the fourth house, which is the placement of home and connection. And what you want is a spouse that's more homey. Yeah. So it really depends. Or it could be like my friend, he met his wife during a transit of the 11th house, and that was when he was moving into a different collective. So his wife is like his best friend. Aww. So he was looking for a best friend and a wife. Aww, you see what I mean? So it can mean in so many different points. So I would say I would look into a person's placement and what they look for in a spouse, and maybe that could be a determination. But even big astrologers say, nah, I don't know when that could be, but we can definitely pinpoint when you met your spouse and why you probably gravitated towards that person at the time.
Right. Because I always feel like when I think of my husband and I get little downloads about him and things, I always think I just have a real inkling that I'm gonna marry somebody very serious and very the opposite of everybody I've ever dated. Yeah. So I feel like in the past, I've dated men who were financially abundant, yes, but also very the men that I've had to parent. Mother in a way, and that's something that my friends always make fun of me. Yeah. Is they're like, you run an orphanage. My friends are always like, you attract men with such deep mother wounds.
Yes. Well, like I said, you were born with the sun in the fourth house. So
Mm.
that the fourth house is the representation of the mother as well.
Mm.
So that could be a factor to why you've attracted those
That
types
makes
of, yeah.
sense.
I mean, it could be, yeah, because you've got that motherly feature that you attract broken men.
Broken. Like
Because
I'm talking about
well,
tore
because
down
yeah,
men.
because the mother is always trying to heal their child, so you
Yeah.
probably attract men who are kind of childish. So because I know, but the thing is, I remember your chart. You're born with Virgo ascendant, so who you're looking for is someone spiritual. And I
Mm-hmm.
find it interesting that your south node is your north node is in the 12th house. So what you could be looking for is somebody who's a little bit more like rah, like, but also expressionistic. So
Yeah.
maybe it's time you find someone who's a little bit more vivacious now. You
Right.
see?
But then it's like,
Uh,
whenever I script out my husband and I'm like, I want him to be a very serious individual.
mm,
Like, I'm tired of dealing with like unserious men,
mm,
and things. But then I always like attract like these, like,
mm.
like interesting personalities, like very like non-traditional
Yeah.
guys, like what I'm attracted
Uh,
to. And I'm just like, I imagine myself marrying somebody very boring and traditional.
But maybe
But I
that not, but that
don't
might not be your path though.
know.
It might not be because, like I said, the opposite of Virgo. So no, I haven't said that before. But the opposite of Virgo is Pisces.
Oh wow.
So Pisces is very much out there.
Okay. Out
Like
there.
it's very much
So
like
what are you gonna say about
yeah.
Pisces men?
Uh,
What should I look out for?
when it comes to Pisces, learn how to be understanding of their chaos. It's like I think that's the best way to kind of describe that because they will eventually know who they are, and if you
Mm.
don't want to be around them, they don't care. Like, that's what I've seen with many places, men. At
Yeah.
least what I've noticed. They eventually are like, well, maybe this relationship wasn't supposed to end because the spiritual wasn't aligning. That's it.
Do you think that like okay, do you think that astrology can determine like how faithful you are? Because I know, okay, and this is a stereotype that I like
Mm,
to I also put this out into the universe.
yeah.
Like, like, oh, like Libras are cheaters.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah. I
like, do you
think
think your
there's.
sign has something to do with that?
I think there are some indicators. I think there can
Mm.
be some indicators. I don't know if it's concrete though. I've noticed that certain people with certain placements are faithful. So, for
Okay.
example, if you got Venus and Virgo, yeah, these are usually faithful men or women.
Mm.
Venus and Capricorn is usually people like if you build a life with them, they tend to be faithful.
Mm-hmm.
But it really depends. It depends.
Because I
Yeah,
just
because
feel like
it's
every
been different
Libra I
with
know
different
is a
people.
cheater.
I mean,
Every Libra man.
well, I know you have certain placements in your chart where you do attract a cheater.
Mm.
So it does show that your relationships probably will be better after 30.
I'm praying.
Yeah. And I know for a lot of women that would sound quite concerning because I know some people think about the biological clock or
No.
yeah, but if you don't, even great. And so I would say most likely after 30 will probably be a better relationship because you're more mature, your psychology changes after 30 as well,
Oh yeah.
especially for men. Like men tend to mature after 30.
Do they
So,
really though? Because all these men that I've dated have been like 40s and up and
okay.
they act younger than me.
I mean, like, well, I would say a lot of men have a lot of their stuff together compared to
That
somebody
makes
who's younger.
sense. Like
Um,
financially, yes.
yeah, because I would say, because I would look at the logistics of those types of men. Because I have noticed with some women,
Hmm.
they'll say like, "Well, men ain't shit, whatever." But
Yeah.
then I'm like, okay, but all the men you've dated have all been kind of like situated in a certain community and a certain group
Mm,
of people. It doesn't seem like you've kind of gone out.
right.
You haven't broke away from your bubble. So I would say maybe go explore out of your bubble now, you see, and kind of see
Hmm.
what's out there. Yeah,
I definitely think after 30,
yeah.
intuitively, I just feel like
Hmm.
after 30 is gonna be like I just don't think I'm gonna meet my
Yeah.
forever spouse
Hmm.
until I'm like I think I have to shed so much skin
Yeah.
first before.
Well, I mean, I've met a lot of people who have your placement in North Node in the 12th house, and most of them have all either been with a spouse that's from a different country or a different race.
Mm.
So it could be that.
Y'all heard
So
that?
yeah. Well, like I said, the 12th house is a very mysterious house. Like
Yeah.
you don't really know what you're gonna get with the 12th house.
That makes sense though.
Yeah.
I honestly, I really don't discriminate. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not, I'm not one of those black women that's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I have to be with a black man.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I'm down for any man who's
Mm-hmm.
obsessed with me,
Yeah.
which may or may not be a good thing. Because I attract a lot
I
of
don't
crazy
know.
men.
Some people it's good. They love it. Like,
I love being obsessed with.
I
Maybe it's
like
the
being
Virgo
obsessed with. I'm not gonna lie.
right?
I
Maybe
like
it's the
it.
Virgo
Yeah, but I mean, to each their own.
Have
Like
to be worshipped.
I don't see a problem with that, to be honest. Like, I think if it works out in your relationship, it works out in your
Right.
relationship. Yeah. So I would say, yeah, go explore.
In your opinion, in the astrology community, who has the worst rep?
I don't know. I don't look into that. I'm not gonna lie.
Like, who do you hear the most? Like, like you hear people really slander this.
I've seen astrologers who sometimes seem like lunatics, but I don't know their names because I think they'll go off from a very basic part of astrology. So I don't know who their names because I'll watch a lot of them, and then I've also met some really cool ones. But I can always tell somebody's a lunatic whenever they haven't really covered certain bases of astrology, and it's very, very basic, like what everybody else says.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, that's fine. I don't need to talk to you. So, because if you sound like everybody else, it means that you're just getting the same information as everybody else does. You haven't gone to like a teacher. You haven't gone to somebody who's gone deep into the practice. So that's why I'm like, that's why even when people talk about like slander astrology in front of me, I'm like, I know you haven't read the text, like I know, so you can't you can't really offend me because I'm like I've done a lot of the work though, so I'm not really gonna be offended,
Yeah.
It's the same thing when if somebody slanders the Bible, like people who have read the Bible, they're just gonna look at the person like, well, I know my Bible, so no offense, but like this works for me. It may not work for you, but I don't need to have this conversation. you know what I mean. So it's
Sign, seal, delivered.
100%. So it's just one of those things, Yeah.
I feel that. I feel like I don't know. Like I hear the word. I hear the most complaints.
Yeah.
About Scorpio suns, Gemini suns. And then who else? I hear Leo praise and Leo slander all in the same, all equally.
Look, every sign has their negative and positive. Yeah. Like for example, I know Scorpios get a bad rep. I love Scorpios. Scorpio is also a money placement.
Really?
So yeah, like Scorpios know like the darker sides of life. So for example, you could be like part of an organization that says, oh, we're about love and family and all this. When Scorpio goes into that organization, it's like, well, they're doing dealings with certain, terrorist groups, and that's how they're getting the money. Like, so that's Scorpio's kind of like that agent of chaos.
Right.
And Scorpios usually know like I said, they know the darker sides of life. They're usually exposed to it. So a lot of people might not believe them. So they're kind of like on this journey of being like, well, I'm fine being different because I know certain truths that you don't, and you refuse to see the truth because it's dark and ugly. You see?
Yeah.
Gemini's is actually like a business house as well. So these are very logical. It's a very masculine energy. I see it a lot with a lot of men. A lot of masculine men tend to have Gemini energy because they're about business, their bag, and like they want that quick facts, So it has goods and bads, all of them.
I will say this about the Scorpio people and like just the duality of astrology in total. It's like it. I guess like one energy both has like things that you can love and hate about it.
Yeah.
And every Scorpio sun I know has like is very comfortable with the darkness of life, like you were saying. And so I find that it makes them really funny people.
Yeah. Well, it's also a psychological placement as well.
Yeah, like they're really, the humor is always dark with them.
Yeah,
but it's always like,
and that's how they make their money.
Yeah,
by being dark. Yeah.
Yeah, like they're always like a very, and them being like the neighbors to Sagittarius, I feel like I even meet some Sagittarius that kind of carry on that kind of energy. Like
Well, I mean,
November Sagittarius.
it's a natural progression. You see, so the November Sagittarius are still closer to the Scorpios, so the energies are still kind of aligned because Scorpios will then transcend into Sagittarius at some point.
Okay, so is that the sidereal astrology?
Yes, I think that is sidereal. So it talks about progression. So so for example, I'm an Aquarius, but I can eventually, and that will always be who I am, but I will progress to Pisces and then Aries, you see? So I've already finished my Pisces and that was crazy. But now I'm entering into Aries, so I'm kind of being more like, all right, see me, yay.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Time to shine.
Time to shine. So you're Virgo, so you naturally progress into Libra. So
oh no, I'm Sag.
Oh, sorry, you're Sag.
I feel very much Virgo though. Like I feel probably because so many Virgo.
Well, you do have Virgo placements, but like you're born Sag, so you progress into Capricorn, so you're about your bag. So
I'm about a bag.
so you've been about your bag. You're about like being serious about like I gotta get on business, and all that. And then eventually you'll go into Aquarius, where you'll be a bit more quirkier, being like, well, I made my money, so now I'm just gonna do whatever I want.
That sounds so exciting.
yeah. So
that sounds so comforting. Yeah. Like honestly, I really love Aquarius people too. Like,
oh, thank you.
I feel like a lot of Aquariuses and like Sagittarius. I feel like a lot of them are like kindred spirits in a way where we just
we are. I fall in love with a lot of Sagittarius. I've noticed that my dating track record actually has been Sagittarius and Capricorn. Yeah, so it's weird. Yeah.
So it's like every time I link up with an Aquarius, it's just like it's such an expansive conversation that gets me out of my body and into my spirit. And it's like like if astrology's not real, then how come every time I encounter these people? It invokes certain things within me. Like when I speak to my Capricorn friends, I'm very like it gets me very much so, like I'm a Sag sun, so I tend to be a little delusional a little bit. Like we have like a little optimism to us.
Well, I mean, I think it's because, Sagittarius energy is pretty much anywhere else but here.
Exactly. So my Capricorn friends bring me here. Like my Capricorn friends, every time I speak to them, it grounds me.
Yeah. Well, because you need the Sagittarius, the spirituality and the wisdom of Sagittarius, like a philosophy in order to build. So that's how astrology, so that's another thing that people don't tend to talk about. Yeah. People who build things, they tend to be inspired. So being born a Sagittarius and then moving to you're now inspired to build, you see? So you have to kind of find a philosophy that works for you so that you can build now, because we as human beings, we are natural builders, you see? So what do we need to do in order to build the life that we would like to live, you see? We need to be inspired.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, what do you think is the most, and this could be, I don't know if you're, I'm not an astrologer, so I don't know if you can, I don't know exactly what are the limitations of astrology, but what do you think, what aspect do you see in some of the most powerful people? Like, what aspect do a lot of them?
8th house, 10th house. I mean, it depends on what you mean by power. But, like, if we're talking about, like, power, like success and business and all that.
Like, just, like, personal, like, willpower. Like, willpower.
I would say they would probably have, like, a lot of Mars aspects, Capricorn, 10th house stuff, 8th house stuff. Like, there's a warriors. Yeah, I mean, first house. Each house has their own thing, but if we're gonna talk about like and all that, like
the dog in you.
the
dog in you.
It would be like Aries placement, Scorpio placement, a good one, Leo. I would say those aspects. If you have if you have that in your chart, I would say Aries, Capricorn, pretty like boss energy.
Yeah. And who do you think are like the lover energies?
The lover energies, so Leo, Libra, Scorpios, like intense love. Like intense. Like we're in this.
We're in this.
I would say and Pisces are lovers, but they're kind of aloof and they're in your life and then they're not. Like so
retreating. They like to retreat.
Yeah, because they don't know how to communicate their emotions, most likely. Yeah, so it takes time. That's why they usually need somebody who's more grounded with them to kind of balance them out.
Like I feel like Libras are like the undercover lovers of the
Yeah, no,
zodiac because they
because
just cannot be alone.
well, Libra and Taurus are ruled by Venus, so that it is that lover, it's
Okay.
that lover placement.
That
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah.
But I feel like the way in which they kind of love is different too. So it's so funny. Most of the guys I've ever dealt with have either been Libras or Tauruses. And
Okay.
like those are like the top signs that I
Yeah.
attract, and it's like the way that Libra expresses their love is very like I never really know if they love me for real because they're
Yeah.
the indecision there and like
Yeah,
the
most likely.
constant like
Yeah.
I love you and then I don't love you and then but also I love you and everybody else. But you know what I'm saying? Like in the whole the non-conventional kind of
Well,
love.
yeah, because Libra is a air house, so that
Mm-hmm.
because it represents air. Air is about freedom, you know. So it's not really about bogging a person down necessarily. Like, and I think with a Libra, it's like freedom to be balanced. Like
Mm.
that's why they get out of balance, you know. So they need somebody who's going to balance them out and be okay with who they are. I mean, you could say that about every sign, but there is this balancing play when it comes to Libra, you know,
Mm.
because
And then
eventually a Libra will move into Scorpio and they want that deep connection. So they
mm.
need to trust that they can be their weird, quirky self with with another person. You see,
That makes sense,
yeah,
actually. I never
because
thought about it that
yeah,
way.
because my sister's a Libra and she's, she tips every now and then, but she usually needs somebody who really accepts her for her individuality.
Mm-hmm.
Like just don't try to tell me who I can or cannot be. Like pretty
Yeah.
much type of energy. Just accept me as I am and grow with me. If you can't, then bye. Like,
Right.
the balance tips.
And then
So
with Tauruses, I
mm,
find like Tauruses are a lot more like when they
grounded.
like a
Yeah.
mature Taurus. So like a
Yes.
mature Taurus man
Mm,
is like will settle down.
yeah.
And it's
And
like I
let's
feel like
build
Libra
here.
men, it's
Yeah.
harder to get them to
Mm-hmm.
settle down with
Mm-hmm.
you than like a
Well, because I think
leveled Taurus.
Taurus is ruled by Earth signs, so it's they might be more traditional or they might be just more grounded in where they are at. So they don't really want to do all that. They just kind of
Yeah.
want to stay here, build here, and let's go for our life. And Libras are
Yeah.
like, well, maybe I don't know, like go back and forth, like
Exactly.
I don't know, like
I
yeah,
love you
yeah,
today, but I
yeah,
don't know if I'll
yeah.
love you
I'm not really sure,
tomorrow.
yeah,
Yeah.
because who knows
But
what
I don't
might.
ever want to let you go. Like,
Yeah,
and Libras hate to
there's
detach from
because
people.
Libra is a relationship house as well.
Mm.
I mean, it's a relationship sign, so they they're trying to find somebody who's going to balance them out, and
Mm.
it usually tends to be somebody who's fiery, that can help them balance their nature out.
That's funny
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
always just end up with the Libras or the
Mhm.
Taurus, but
Yeah.
like I feel like Libras are a lot more fun, and that's why my longest term friends are Libras. So
Okay.
we've known each other since like we were kids, like little
Yeah.
kids, and we still talk like every single day, and it's
Mhm.
like they really do. It's a very like symbiotic relationship to
Yeah.
where like we've never argued, like we've never like gotten into it. We kind of just like
Mhm.
move around each other
Well,
in a real
maybe in your charts together, you probably have some 12th house stuff. So, I
yeah.
mean, even when you do a combination of two charts, you can kind of see why certain people are still friends. Like
Yeah.
I have a friend, he's from Colombia. We've been friends for years. I did our chart together. It showed like, yeah, we have like our Venus in the 12th house. It's like, yeah, this is like unconditional love we have for each other.
Mm.
Just it's like my boy, he's my brother, you know. So it's like it could be that. It could be there could be certain things in your chart with your friend that just shows that yeah, we're in this
Our
forever. Like, it
buddies.
doesn't matter what world you go into, we're friends. Yeah.
Shout out to
Yeah.
Priscilla and
Yeah.
Zenobia.
Yeah.
Like those are my Libras,
Yeah.
my Libra buddies.
Mm.
But let's get into synastry real quick
Mhm.
too. It's so I hear, I always keep my ears to the astrology streets,
Mhm.
and they always, one thing that I hear a lot is like, oh, dating someone who their sun is your moon is like,
Okay, yeah.
how do you
So,
get into that?
there's synastry, Davidson, and composite. So synastry is kind of like how you react with a person on a day-to-day basis. Your composite is when the energies are blended together. So
Mm.
it's what it's the blueprint of what the relationship will probably end up becoming if you spend enough time with each other. You see?
Yeah.
So the synastry is kind of like, so if your sun is conjunct with your moon, so your chances are it's a marriage type of relationship. And
Mm.
it doesn't necessarily also have to be like a marriage as in traditional sense. It could just be like a marriage of two people, like they're partners and they just go well together. So probably one person takes more of the lead and the other one follows, but there's like a good relationship between them. So, you know, for example, I see with a lot of like long-term marriage couples, there's a sun and a moon with their aspect, most likely.
Okay.
Yeah. So it just depends. Yeah. So it's just you'll notice certain placements and planets how they go well together. What the conflict could also be as well. So let's say if you have Mars opposite Venus. So you two are compatible, but you're not as well. Like it's tense, so you have to kind of get through the friction between each other because the way your love natures are quite different. You see,
Right.
so or if you have Venus conjunct Mars, they go well together. Like it's a very sexual energy, and you just go really well together. It's almost too much sometimes. So you know, it just depends. You know, you have to kind of see what like the planets kind of go with to see why the relationship is doing what it's doing. But they're still I know they're still innovating that. So I don't know how much accuracy they can get, but
Yeah.
I've noticed that there has been like, some really good accuracy with certain people. It's really interesting to watch them.
Because I always wonder that. Like, I see that a lot, like, especially on Twitter and thing and TikTok. But I'm always like, and I look at my moon sign and I'm like, Dad, I don't really have the time or patience to deal with Virgo men. And they make great friends, though. But I just kind of see how they move in a relationship. And I'm like,
yeah,
like,
I mean, there could be some like bad aspects with like your seventh house. So the seventh house is about partnership. So it could be like, oh, maybe it's just not working, you know, and it's
like,
just it's just too much friction.
Like, I feel like I haven't really met a lot of Virgo men who kind of get out of their ego and want to worship somebody else.
So it's interesting that you say that you date a lot of Virgo men, but a lot of your placements show that you're probably looking for someone who's more Piscean.
Piscean, really?
So that's what I'm saying. So you probably got very used to dating Virgonian men.
Right. Like they've been Virgo placements. I haven't dated a Virgo sun.
Yeah.
But they've been like Virgo placement. All of them have had a Virgo placement.
So I would say find somebody who has more I mean, you know, you probably are looking for someone who's more Piscean. So when we talk about Piscean men, we talk about probably men who are much more spiritual, men who are much more creative, a little bit more out there. Maybe some of this, you know, that's a little out there. So
it's funny that you bring up Piscean men. I just watched a video last night. Straight up slandering Pisces.
Oh, really?
And I don't know why I sat through all 5 minutes of it. But it was on TikTok and it was so funny to me because it was like this girl was giving like a lecture and she was like, next time you want to date a Pisces man? And it was like all these like serial killers and the Ted Bundys and the serial killer statistics. And I was just like, they're that bad?
I mean, there's a lot of good Pisces men, like in the world. I mean, I would say,
dang.
But I would say, like, you know, the fact that there are like a lot of bad Pisces people is because, well, I mean, Pisces is like I said, it's spiritual energy, and the thing is, spiritual energy doesn't necessarily have to be all good. It can be bad too. So when you discover like you have an innate amount of spiritual energy inside of you, that can push a person to a bit of a power play. You know, it's like when you ascend, how do you ascend? Do you ascend in a bad way or do you ascend in a good way? So maybe those men eventually realize how powerful they were and they utilize it in a bad way. You see what I mean? So, I mean, there's still a lot to learn, but that could be part of why those men ended up because Pisces people are also quite affected by the environment that they come from. So because they're so spiritual and people project onto them, so if you're projected by consistent negativity, the chances are your life could probably end up in that direction.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Because Pisces, the representation of Pisces is that, you know, you're constantly projected onto it, and they're quite and it is an unstable placement as well to be in. You know, so it could be that. You know.
I always wondered because I've never my Pisces homegirls, I love them down. Like I love Pisces women, but I've never really had to interact with Pisces men for some reason, and so I always wondered like, what is the slander? Like I always wondered like, why did
because I've also encountered many Pisces men who are very, very rich. Like very rich men, rich, so it really depends. So I would say if you're gonna go for a Pisces man, look for the right environment.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Oh, this is such a good talk. Okay. So like, let's do like a quick like I want to know the first thing that comes to your mind, and I'm gonna name like the 12 signs, and this is how we're gonna close out. And then I'm gonna ask you, where my audience can follow you and support your endeavors as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's start let's start at the beginning of astrology.
Okay.
So quick word whichever one. Okay, Aries.
Warrior.
Okay. Yeah. Taurus.
Money. Wealth.
Oh. Yeah. Gemini.
Commerce.
Okay. Cancer.
Home. Mother.
Leo.
King. Leader.
Ooh, king.
Yeah.
Virgo.
Nurturer, like in the medical sense.
Okay. Libra.
Best friends.
Oh, my besties are Libras. Scorpio.
Ride or die.
I get they are ride or die material. Sagittarius.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Capricorn.
Money, the power, the everything.
They in there. They in there.
Like, yeah.
And Aquarius.
The most interesting people you will ever meet.
You got a point. You got a point there. Well, yes, thank you so much for this episode of The Healing Hour. And Kevin, tell us where we can find you. Drop your handles, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
You can find me on my acting page. It's Kevin Tati. And I'm working a lot with a community of actors here in Houston. So if you want to go check us out, that would be really great. Yeah. So, Kevin Tati. That's mine.
Yes, and be on the lookout for this space and more projects going on in Houston. Right. And thank you so much. This was today's episode of The Healing Hour. As I stated in the last episode, we're doing something new this season where I'm actually going to incorporate a donation link, and we're going to be donating to mental health initiatives. So thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.